Distinguished members and friends of YASED, we are with you again with a brand new webcast series on a very important agenda item of ours, sustainable development. 2021 has been a very busy year where green transformation occupied a major space thanks to developments in the EU Green Deal policy and EU climate change conference held in Glasgow. We followed both of them very closely and deliberated with our members and public authorities, and with many events and studies contributed to the healthy development of this policy domain in Turkey. Today with this program, we are commencing a series of insightful webcasts that will acquaint our viewers with endeavors that are going on at both global and local scales to spur green transformation. It is a source of pride for YASED that most of our members have emission reduction commitments, green transformation strategies and action plans, and many activities contributing to the realization of UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Needless to say that the best practices around the world and in our country are implemented by our members. One aspect of YASED's contribution to Turkey's green transformation efforts is bringing this know-how and disseminating it by increasing the visibility of these best practices. Within this context, our guest today is PepsiCo. Chief Sustainability Officer Chris DALY of PepsiCo Europe and General Manager Ece AKSEL of PepsiCo Turkey are honoring the premiere of our series. Chris, Ece Hanım, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Ece Hanım, it is always a privilege to have a YASED board member in our webcast. Thank you for helping us in setting this meeting and facilitating Chris's participation. It's a great pleasure to have such distinguished guests full of knowledge and experience at global level. And as we all know, PepsiCo is one of our members with solid commitments and which has already rolled up the sleeves and dedicated a great deal to harness renewables as the primary source of energy, achieve uptake of green and digital technologies and best practices in the agricultural sector through direct engagement with the people, and become a fully circular business. Chris, I took the liberty to spell the broad vision of PepsiCo on sustainability on your behalf, the details of which our viewers and I are most excited to hear about from you. So what can you tell us about general sustainability trends? What is happening globally? Why companies have to take action? And what's PepsiCo's short and long-term sustainability commitments? The floor is yours, Chris.
Thanks very much indeed, Serkan. It's a pleasure to be with you. I think CSOs like myself love to have a platform to talk about this agenda. And it's definitely true that in the past, that was a challenge. These days, it's not so much the case. Indeed, you know, in PepsiCo, we have really put this whole agenda, sustainability, very much at the center of what we're trying to do. And I'm going to take you through a small presentation today to try to lay that out for you and give you an idea of what our journey is and how we see it. One thing I would say as we step into this is we step into it, you know, both with pride that we've taken it on board to deliver this, but also with humility, because a lot of what we know today is what we don't actually know on this journey. And yet what we realize is, of course, that, you know, waiting to know everything is going to be way too slow to move this agenda forward. So getting into it is kind of one of the keys of what we need to do. So let me share my materials with you now.
Please.
Great. Well, look, you know, you may ask yourself, why would we step into this agenda with such fervor? And truly, we are stepping in a great way because we do realize that this needs to be at the center of what we do as a business. The reality, of course, is that the world has been working on a linear model, which has been very successful from an economic standpoint, but of course, we now realize has major detriments to it. And those detriments really fall into two buckets. One is a social side of the equation, an equation where, for example, the share of profits across the value chain between its contributors are not actually fair. And we have people in the value chain that are not fairly rewarded for what they do. And then secondly, there are also within that sphere of social impacts, hidden costs of doing business today, which are not actually picked up. So for example, there's costs of health, you know, rising from pollution in cities, etc., from production facilities and so on and so forth. These are all areas that need to be addressed. But equally, there's the environmental side of this. The environmental side, which is to say that, you know, the world has limited resources, and our extractive linear model that we've been using is actually running to an end as populations increase, as people's lives become longer, and as the, you know, kind of great economic benefits of the linear model have worked through, we all have more spending power and therefore are consuming more. Unless we move towards a more circular model going forward, this will be a real challenge for us. And indeed, you know, at PepsiCo 3 years ago, we talked about, you know, the sustainable food system that was needed and how the sustainable system is very broken. We did that in our sustainability report. Now, PepsiCo Positive is our new program that's a response to that and how we step into it. And what we're trying to do with this model is actually move away and transform from being a business that depends on this linear model that we have all become so accustomed to a model that is more circular, that gives back as much as it actually takes out. And we do this for two reasons. One is because PepsiCo, being one of the largest food and beverage companies in the world, has a responsibility to have a purpose agenda. It needs to drive positive change in order for it to have the right credentials in the marketplace. So our purpose agenda has been fundamental to PepsiCo since the day this company started. Each one of our 290,000 employees absolutely believes and has in their DNA the purpose approach of this business. It's what drives them. It's what makes them love to work at PepsiCo. So it's very much embedded in who we are. And so that's a good thing. But of course, the purpose agenda that we have to go on now, we realize is much bigger and more different than what we have been assuming it had been up to this point in time. And therefore, we're stepping in with a much bolder program as we go forward. From a business standpoint, the benefit of that is obviously very clear as well, because as we look towards a world where there is, soil erosion, a scarcity of water, where climate change is happening, what we're seeing is huge impacts on the communities in which we operate, and also on the resources that we use to drive value for our business in the long term, both for our shareholders, for our consumers, for our customers, and also for our associates. As we step into our purpose agenda, the business agenda is what actually prevails and what actually benefits from this. And therefore, we see this agenda being very much a business agenda as well as a purpose agenda, and that's how we move forward. Now, PepsiCo Positive is the program that we're using to bring this to life. It's a program that we formally announced in September of last year, 2021. But in fact, we've been working on it for 2 years before then in order to bring it to life. And what it effectively is a transformation of our business. As I say, moving away from this reliance on a linear model to one that is a more circular model. And in that circular model, if you think about it, you've got to rely on everything in your value chain actually changing. And therefore, this is truly a transformation. And it comes, of course, at the same time as we're looking at workforce transformations and way of working transformations and digital transformations. Funnily enough, all of these things are integrally linked together. And in particular, digital is a huge unlock in this whole sustainability agenda. Now, there are 3 platforms to change within this program. The first one is PepsiCo Positive Agriculture, and positive agriculture is all about the business that we operate, because actually every product that we produce is a product that has the start of its life with someone somewhere in the field growing something, and therefore at its heart, PepsiCo is very much an agricultural company, and therefore if we talk about circular models and moving towards a circular model, for us not to drive regenerative agriculture would be a huge mistake. And therefore, at the essence of what we're doing in our model is regenerative agriculture. The second part of our program, the second pillar, is positive value chain. The value chain is everything that starts from the beginning of sourcing right through to delivery to the consumer and post-consumer use of the product. And within that area, what we're doing is we're basically setting ambitious goals across climate change, across water, across packaging use and packaging waste, and also, kind of the way people are rewarded within our business and the opportunities that people in the value chain have to grow within our business. And finally, the third pillar of our program, perhaps the most fundamental, is this fundamental positive choice. Positive choice is all about our consumers having a broader choice to be able to choose from, to be able to choose products that are more better for the planet or more better for their own nutrition. And PepsiCo aims to provide these products to consumers to give them wider choice as part of this transformation of our business. At the same time, we have great brands, and those brands touch 1 billion consumers globally every single day. And therefore, we want our brands to be able to inspire consumers to positive action as well. And that's a key element of the change we're going to bring around. Now, I'm going to talk about each of those areas in more detail, but the important point that we have kind of built into this program is this idea that the targets that we have to set are ambitious, because ultimately the ambitious targets are the ones that will stretch us more. Importantly, also, we've gone with science-based targets across everything that we're actually doing. So by tying to science, what we've seen in our business is it takes away the easy choices that we could make to get to a destination and causes us to really follow through on some of the hard choices that we need to do. We are constraining ourselves within this model in order to create a better business for the long term. And that ultimately leads to a solution that is both science-based and also kind of targeted in an aggressive way. If we look at each of those areas that we're looking at, positive agriculture, as I've mentioned, it's fundamental to our business. Within our European business, the climate emissions from agriculture alone are about 46% of our total footprint. So it's very significant in terms of climate. But actually, it's significant in terms of other ways as well. PepsiCo has been for a long time very much focused on kind of sustainable agriculture. And for 20 years, we've been driving sustainable farming in our business through the use of technology, through the use of farmer practices, through the use of collaboration across the industry in order to drive change. And that's been very successful for us. But the reality, of course, is that in order to be totally regenerative, we need to be doing more. We need to be focusing more on biodiversity, be focusing more on soil health in the long run. This means we need to look at the way farming practices are done, and we need to encourage our growers in our business, both the ones that we operate with directly, and importantly, the ones that we operate indirectly through interim providers. We need to work with them to work with regenerative practices. The challenge here is not so much in what needs to be done, just the fact that there's a huge population of growers and partners out there that we need to impact in order to make change happen. The goal that we have is to basically transform every single acre of land that we use, and we use 7 million across our business, to transform that into regenerative agriculture. And we want to do that by 2030. As a result of that, we will be able to source all of our materials that are key to our products in a sustainable way. And therefore, the second goal that we have within this space is how do we get to sustainable sourcing for all the ingredients. Today, we've made major progress on that, but as part of this program, we've widened the scope of materials that we actually now call key ingredients. And therefore, the bulk of everything we buy is included in this program today. And then finally, of course, as I mentioned, across the value chain, we need to make sure there's equity. And therefore, our program is very much focused on driving the livelihoods of people within the value chain, not least of which is the role of women within the value chain and the positive reward for the work that they actually do, which is sometimes imbalanced given the major contribution they actually make to the program. So therefore, what we're going to do going forward is focus on each of these three areas. Now, we'll do that by working across the value chain. We're currently doing many things as we speak. We're working, for example, with a program that started in Turkey back in over 10 years ago, where we started using waste to drive fertilizer. This waste-based fertilizer that we developed in Turkey, we've now taken to the next level, and we're trialing it in the UK at the moment, with the view of rolling it out across all of our potato growing in Europe within the next 3 to 4 years. And that will substantially reduce the carbon footprint of potato production within our business. And this is just one example of what we're actually doing. At the same time, we're constantly working with our growers. And last year we started with a handful of growers who volunteered to be our regenerative practice growers. They have a social media platform that they use to communicate to all the other growers who are not part of the regenerative program, so they can share their learnings, and therefore people can have access to their learnings in advance to encourage them to take on the journey of regenerative agriculture. This is the journey that we're on, and it's significant that this is a journey that lasts many, many years, simply because obviously it involves so many people, and using social media as a way forward to bring people into the program is our way forward of trying to use technology to accelerate the pace of change. If you look at positive value chain, there are key components here. I mean, clearly at the front of this is climate change. We now know after COP26 that climate change is hugely important, and across Europe, it's very widely recognized by consumers that this is something we need to go after. At PepsiCo, we've signed up for science-based and we have a 1.5 degree goal. By 2030, we aim to reduce our absolute carbon footprint by 40%. And that 40% is very significant, given that that change needs to happen at a time when the infrastructure in the marketplace is not really where it needs to be able to support that change. So whether we're talking about renewable energy into facilities, or whether we're talking about transportation availability in terms of low and zero emission transportation use, all of those things don't really exist today. So therefore, whether our 2030 goal of reducing by 40% or whether our 2040 goal of net zero is the most challenging part of the goal, it's hard to determine at this point in time. However, we are very clear on where we're going with our journey. A large part of it is around agriculture, a large part of it's around packaging, a large part of it is obviously around kind of manufacturing and transportation, as well as the coolers that are used to display our products in store and to chill them for consumers. So all of these areas are key areas that we're going after within this space of climate climate change. In the area of packaging, packaging, obviously, as a consumer goods company, it's very important to us. And it is perhaps the one area of the business that is an immediate threat to the operation of our business. Packaging waste is very much on consumers' mind. Driving a circular packaging model is absolutely fundamental to the long-term sustainability of our business. And therefore, this year, 2021, that is, we have basically announced that 12 of our markets in Europe will move brand Pepsi to 100% circular packaging by the end of 2022. And that's the first step on a journey to transform our portfolio in Europe to being a portfolio that actually removes fossil fuels, virgin fossil fuels entirely from packaging, replaces them with renewable or recycled content. And as a result, basically eliminates packaging waste. We will do the same thing across all of our packaging formats by 2030. And then across water fundamental to our business as climate change has increased. What we've seen, of course, is that water is becoming more scarce. This is, significant for markets like Turkey, where, we do have water scarce areas or high water risk areas. And in those areas, what we're saying is that we will totally replenish any water that we take out, having reduced the amount of water that we actually use to the absolute minimum that, reaches best in class standard for those markets. So we're building technologies that basically support the reduction of water use in our beverage plants and in our snacks plants. And in addition to that, we're building holistic replenishment programs that drive not only water management, but also biodiversity in the spaces where we operate and where we need this practice. And finally, people, of course, our business, diversity, inclusion, people growth has been a core part of our business for so long. And yet, we need to do more. The evidence of, 2021 and what happened across the globe in terms of this area raises the transparency of the problems that exist across the value chain. Therefore, as a business, we're stepping up our investment in this space significantly in order to create the kind of roles that people can grow into, in order to create the kind of roles in the value chain that reward people successfully at what they're doing. This is the core element of our program from a people standpoint. And if we come to the final area of the program then, this positive choices. Positive choices is really fundamental to who we are as a business. At the end of the day, when people talk about PepsiCo, they think about Pepsi, they think about Lay's, they think about our brands. And these brands have huge power of communication. So we will use that power to communicate positive, inspire positive actions from consumers by giving those brands a story that inspires that type of action. But likewise, we'll make products available to consumers that are better for them, that are better for the planet. And we will redesign and evolve our product portfolio in that direction over the next 10 years, providing much better choices for our consumers. This is how we will basically make change happen. Within that, at the same time, what we're doing is we're looking at our business models, because we understand that if we want to make the truly circular change that we need to do, we are going to have to look at everything that we do. So whether it's plastic waste or whether it's climate change, product design is going to be fundamental to making those change happen. So whether it's ingredients and products, whether it's business models and models like SodaStream, all of these things will effectively be part of the transformation that PepsiCo is about to go on. It's very, very clear to us that all of this journey will have a significant change and costs to the business, but we also see it very much as being a necessary change that we need to bring about. And therefore, what we're doing is trying to build this into our algorithm so that we can basically make this happen and at the same time emerge at the other end with a business that is not linear anymore, but rather circular, and has made that transformation so that we think in a planet positive way, in a PepsiCo positive way. So as we kind of look at that and we kind of close out on where we're going with this program, a couple of points that I think are important to make here. The first one is that, a program like this only really begins with ambitious targets. And what we've done, as I said before, is to set ambitious targets that are also science-based. The great thing that we've realized from having science-based targets in the last 10 years, actually the last 5 years, has been the fact that they provide constraints. And those constraints tell you how you need to run the business rather than how you want to run the business. And that in and of itself forces you to transform your thinking away from the linear incremental thinking that most of us would like to adopt to thinking that is different. And therefore, the adoption of science-based targets, not only does it help, across the value chain because everybody's talking a common language, it actually helps us to run our business in a more, kind of sustainable way. Operationalizing this is obviously key across our business, and that means involving a lot of people. And I'll share with you in a little while a video that we are kind of using internally to promote PepsiCo Positive across our business. What I would say to you is, by including this within our business algorithm, understanding what this means for our business in terms of how we need to operate it going forward, and driving it through every single function of our business rather than driving it as an add-on, which was the previous model that we had, that's clearly making a real change. We're very positive about the rate of change that we can bring about, but we are also concerned about the environmental externally and what needs to happen there. Because of course, PepsiCo can't do this by itself, and it needs help from the outside. So if I think about, converting power in plants to, green electricity, moving away from fossil fuels, very much limited across Europe by the availability of the electricity network. If I think about transportation and the availability of low and zero emission transportation, unless we come up with a model that really works to be able to kind of make more transport available, it's going to be very hard to transform our transportation footprint. If we look at agriculture, the journey is clearly a long journey. It's one that we need to consistently apply ourselves against and be patient with its delivery on. All of these are challenges. All of these things can be helped by better government regulation. And I think regulation, from my point of view, it can be a very positive thing. I think we saw it in Europe with the Single-Use Plastics Act, where, it brought a lot of companies across the value chain together to be able to make change happen. And I think the same thing can happen in all areas of regulation related to sustainability change. But just as regulation can be positive, it can also be very negative. And therefore, getting regulation right and tying regulation to science-based targets, it's fundamental to what needs to happen going forward. Because ultimately, by doing that, everybody can be on the same page and moving in the same direction. What we don't want to do is lock ourselves into regulation that at the end of the day is more prohibitive to making change happen than actually facilitating the right change. And certain markets across Europe are making good progress in this in terms of bonus and malus schemes to incentivize, positive change, and also to punish people not making change in the right direction. More of this is definitely very helpful in order to speed change across the value chain, because ultimately companies will find it difficult, I think, across the value chain to move fast. But when regulation comes in, it can help to speed things up. The key thing there is getting that regulation right, so it's driving the right kind of behaviors. Value growth in the marketplace is a key element of PepsiCo Positive. When we presented PepsiCo Positive publicly, we presented it as a commercial strategy, because that's fundamentally what it is. We know our consumers want change. We know our consumers are more aware than ever of the impact of their choices. We think that by going forward in this way, we will be able to drive greater consumer regard for our brands, and we believe that that will drive the growth of our business and the business of our customers. So we're very much banking on this program being one that we can build a strong commercial agenda against going forward, and that will be how we will drive this forward. At the same time, we should recognize that the short-term cost of this program is very significant, and as such, in the short term, we will need to compensate for the cost of this program by prioritizing, within our business in order to make this happen, because ultimately change does cost up front, even if it pays back in the longer term. So we're working on how we make that happen. And as I say, we've built this into the algorithms of our business so that we, are confident about our ability to deliver it. Same time here, governments can help by helping companies, not only like PepsiCo, but also smaller companies who have more difficulty in absorbing some of the transition costs of moving from where we are to where they need to be. They can help by providing those bonus and malus systems that ultimately can facilitate the right kind of change and behavior. And finally, this whole agenda at the end of the day, as we look at it, we recognize more than ever that the change that we can do within PepsiCo is a small piece of the overall change we need to bring about. A big part of the agenda that we have internally is to start driving change within the marketplace. So whether that's, recycling systems for packaging, whether that's investments in infrastructure for carbon footprint reduction, all of these things need to happen. But in order for them to happen, they need industry and they need government to come together and start working on how to make those changes happen in the right way that drives the right behavior. And therefore, collaborating for action rather than collaborating for talk is really important in this agenda. And over the last couple of years, as we've stepped into it, what we've realized is that it is quite difficult to make change happen across businesses because everybody has something to protect that they don't really want to give up until the last minute. The challenge with this is that we don't really have that much time, and therefore we need to be moving with this agenda faster rather than slower, and therefore getting together and starting to drive demand for sustainable activities or sustainable assets within our business or sustainable approach to the value chain. That needs to happen now, and therefore companies coming together and governments kind of working with companies together can be a major driver on this going forward. It's certainly where we'll be placing most of our attention on this agenda as we go forward, because the things that are within our control, those are the things that we can do fairly easily. The things that are outside of our control, that's where we need help and unlocks, and ultimately collaboration is the way to do that. So that's basically the program that we're on right now at PepsiCo. We are very, proud of this program, as I mentioned, but we're also, as I said up front, we're very humble about it too. We recognize more and more as we go into it how difficult this program actually is to deliver. At the same time, we feel very positive about the trajectories that we're on and our ability to deliver it long term. We hope, however, to be able to do that in a collaborative way with each and every one of you. Thanks very much for this. I'm going to leave you with a video that we share internally within our business for our employees to get them on board. I think it's fair to say that none of them really need the persuasion because they all understand the agenda pretty well, but I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you.
PepsiCo Positive is our bold new ambition on sustainability. We're not the first company to explore ways to make a positive impact, and we won't be the last. But we are laser focused on transforming the way we create shared value by operating within planetary boundaries and inspiring positive change for the planet and people in the global food system. Every one of us will play a key role in this journey. We're the engine that drives our business. We spark joy and bring smiles with every single bite and sip all over the world to billions of people. And with that incredible reach comes great responsibility. We'll leverage our operations, our brands, our collective impact to deliver on the promise of PepsiCo Positive, making them forces of good for the planet and its people. Through positive agriculture, we'll source crops and ingredients in a way that restores the earth and strengthens communities. In a positive value chain, we'll make our products in a way that is water positive and carbon neutral and promotes a circular economy. And with positive choices, we'll inspire people through purpose-led brands and invest to build prosperous, equitable communities. The challenges we face are big, but they impact each and every one of us, our neighborhoods, our communities, our land. We need to think global and act local. We have that power. We have that responsibility. Together, PepsiCo Positive will make us even faster, even stronger, and even better.
A very nice video, and that laugh in the middle is really contagious. I do remember that. And thank you very much, Chris, for this very enlightening and thought-provoking presentation, and especially that toolbox type summary that would help anyone who is going to undertake efforts in this domain. Thank you very much for this, and also for the sense of urgency you created that is showing that we need to act now and act fast. That requires collaboration at all levels, and this is a comprehensive effort that is going to involve all our value chain so that we can have a noticeable impact on this one. Thanks again. It was really enjoyed the presentation. Ece Hanım, öncelikle tekrar hoş geldiniz. Programımızın bu bölümünde sizden PepsiCo Türkiye olarak sürdürülebilirlik alanındaki çalışmalarınız hakkında daha detaylı bilgi alacağız. Geniş ölçekli bir değişimi başarmak amacıyla sürdürülebilir tarım, gıda zincirine yönelik birçok iyi uygulama örneği çalışmanız var. Hepsini takip ediyoruz. Chris de bahsetti. Dünya ölçeğine de yayılmış başarılı Türkiye uygulamalarını duymak bizi de çok memnun etti gerçekten. Bu çalışmaları daha geniş kitlelere yaygınlaştırmak ve özellikle benimsenme düzeyini artırmak için neler yapıyorsunuz? Kamu, sivil toplum, sektör kuruluşlarıyla olan ilişkileriniz ve daha da önemlisi onlardan beklentileriniz nedir? Bunlardan bahsedebilir misiniz lütfen?
Ben öncelikle sizlere ve tüm izleyicilerimize çok pozitif bir yeni yıl dileyerek başlamak istiyorum. Ve özellikle size teşekkür etmek istiyorum Serkan Bey bu webinar serisi için. Gerçekten bu çok kritik konuda birbirimizden ilham almak, feyz almak, birbirimizden öğrenmek için çok kıymetli olduğunu düşünüyorum bu paylaşımların. Sağ olun buna liderlik ettiğiniz için.
Peki.
Şimdi aynen dediğiniz gibi PepsiCo olarak ölçeğimiz sebebiyle sürdürülebilir tarım ve gıda sistemi noktasında küresel çapta bir etki yaratabileceğimize inanıyoruz ve bu konuda ciddi bir sorumluluk hissediyoruz. Chris de bahsetti. Ve dolayısıyla da hani gezegenimizin limitlerini dikkate alarak dünyamız ve insanlar için olumlu değişime ilham vererek küresel gıda sisteminde pozitif değer yaratmak istiyoruz. İşte tam da PepsiCo Positive stratejimizin çıkış noktası bu. Chris anlattı ama kısaca özetlemem gerekirse PepsiCo Positive'le biz stratejik bir uçtan uca dönüşüm gerçekleştirmeye çalışıyoruz. Tam anlamıyla tarladan tüketiciye bütün değer zincirimize dokunan bir strateji oluşturduk ve işte 3 ana başlığı, 3 temel başlığı duydunuz. Pozitif tarım, pozitif değer zinciri ve pozitif seçenekler olmak üzere 3 temel başlık. Bugünün en temel meselelerinden biri sürdürülebilir bir gıda sistemi inşa etmek dedik. Ve dolayısıyla da biz bunu sağlamak için tarımda sürdürülebilirliği sağlamak zorundayız. İşte nedir? Toprağın zenginleştirilmesi, biyoçeşitliliğin korunması, su kaynaklarının bilinçli kullanımı gibi konuları da içeren yenileyici tarımın desteklenmesi ve özellikle de çiftçilerin bilinçlendirilmesi bu konuda atılması gereken en temel adımlar diye düşünüyoruz. Biz PepsiCo Türkiye olarak belki biliyorsunuz cipslik patates üretiminin %60'ını yapıyoruz. Yani Türkiye'deki cipslik patates üretiminin %60'ını yapıyoruz. 20 şehirde toplam 50.000 dekar arazi üzerinde yüzlerce çiftçiyle işbirliği içinde bu üretimi yapıyoruz. Ve bu üretimin yanı sıra PepsiCo olarak bu topraklarda da başka çalışmalar, yatırımlar, yenilikler yapan bir şirketiz. İşte pozitif tarımla da bu eforlarımızı bir adım daha ileriye götürmek istiyoruz. Sahip olduğumuz ölçek sayesinde de daha büyük etki yaratmak istiyoruz. Örnek vermem gerekirse agro çalışmalarımız kapsamında bu yıl yenileyici tarım uygulamalarına yönelik projelerde başta kendi çiftçilerimiz olmak üzere Konya ili ve civarında çiftçilere bu uygulamaların anlatılması, öğretilmesi, yerinde gösterilmesi için demo farmlar kuruyoruz. Ve düzenleyeceğimiz eğitimler ve mikrofinansal desteklerle de etki alanımızı genişletmeyi hedefliyoruz. Bunun ötesinde yaklaşık 8 senedir ülkemizde cipslik patates dediğimiz özel bir tür patates kullanıyoruz. Onun tohumlarını ve cinslerini yetiştirmek için yerel bir şirketle tohum geliştirme ve Ar-Ge çalışmaları yapıyoruz. Ve bugün itibariyle topraksız tarım olarak da bilinen bu hidroponik sistemde cipslik patates tohumlarımızın neredeyse tamamını ülkemizde kendimiz yetiştiriyoruz. Bunun gibi gerçekleştirdiğimiz ve önümüzdeki dönemde de hayata geçireceğimiz projelerde SKA'ların uzmanlığı ve çevikliğinden yararlanarak işbirlikleri kuruyoruz. Bu yolculukta diğer amaçtaş özel sektör oyuncularıyla işbirlikleri kurmaya açığız. Bunu istiyoruz. Bunun ötesinde inanıyoruz ki özel sektörün kamu ile bilgi birikimi paylaşımını arttırmak lazım. Ve hatta Türkiye'nin yenileyici tarıma dönüşüm yol haritası keşke beraber oluşturulsa diyoruz. Ama bu doğrultuda kesin olan mevcuttaki destek mekanizmalarının arttırılması ve özellikle sürdürülebilir odaklı teşviklerin yaygınlaştırılması bizce özel sektörün dönüşümü adına önemli olacak. Bunları hızlıca söyleyebilirim.
Sağ olun Ece Hanım, çok teşekkürler. Yine sizlerin katkısıyla geliştirdiğimiz YASED gündeminin de parçası olan çok önemli konular bahsettiğiniz şey. Bunları kamu nezdinde de takipçisi olmaya biz de devam edeceğiz sizlerin desteğinizle. Bu uygulamalar gerçekten çok etkileyici ve bir taraftan da döngüsel ekonomi kavramını şirketler içinde nasıl içselleştirdiğimizle ilgili bir soruyu da peşi sıra aklımıza getiriyor. Siz PepsiCo olarak döngüsel ekonomi kavramını iş yapış biçiminize nasıl adapte ettiniz? Operating model'ı nasıl değiştirdiniz bunun için?
Biz esasında döngüsel ekonomiyi bütünsel olarak görüyoruz, düşünüyoruz. Ona öyle bakıyoruz. Ambalaj döngüsü tabii ki bunun altında başlıklardan bir tanesi, küresel olarak önemli bir odak noktamız. Orada ambalajların asla atık olmadığı bir dünya kurmak için çalışıyoruz. Tüm ambalajlarımızda geri dönüştürülmemiş plastik kullanımını azaltmaya yönelik olarak çok böyle net, sağlam hedefler koyduk ve hali hazırda Türkiye'de içeceklerimizde kullandığımız PET ambalajlarımızın %25'i geri dönüştürülmüş plastik ambalajdan elde ediliyor. Bazı ürün gruplarımızda bu oran %50'ye varıyor. 2022'de bir adım ileri gidiyoruz. Plastik kirliliğimizin %40'ını aşacak geri dönüştürülmüş plastik kullanımımız. Hatta bazı ürünlerimizde %100 rPET kullanımına geçeceğiz. Bir yandan İş Dünyası Plastik Girişimi imzacısı olarak ülkemizde bu alanda yapılan çalışmalara, yani bu rPET teknoloji alanında yapılan çalışmalara da destek veriyoruz. Bunun ötesinde 2022 yılı itibariyle Türkiye'de hayata geçecek olan zorunlu depozito iade sistemi var. Bu sistemi dünyada olduğu gibi Türkiye'de de destekliyoruz ve döngüsel ekonomi adına atılacak önemli bir adım olarak görüyoruz. Tabii burada sistemin birinci günden doğru şekilde kurulması amaca ulaşmakta kritik belirleyici faktörlerden biri olacak. Yine burada endüstriyi de içine alan, özel sektörü de içine alan doğru planı hayata geçirmeyi heyecanla bekliyoruz. Ambalajların ötesinde de dediğim gibi yani döngüselliğe bütünsel bakıyoruz. Sıfır atık konusu bizim için tarladan fabrikaya kadar uzanan döngüsel ekonomi modelinin önemli parçalarından birini oluşturuyor. Türkiye'deki 6 fabrikamızın hepsi sıfır atık olarak faaliyet gösteriyor ve gerçek anlamda operasyonlarımızdaki her atıktan değer yaratmaya çalışıyoruz. Chris'in bahsettiği gübre projesi vardı. İşte operasyonlarımızdan çıkan patates kabukları, işte mısır, nişasta, sebze yağları atıklarını toplayarak ve bir arıtma tesisinde değerlendirerek, fermente ederek fabrikalarımızda kullandığımız enerji üretiminin bir kısmını bu sayede biyogaz üreterek gerçekleştiriyoruz. Bu prosesten kalan posaları patates üreticilerimizin bir sonraki ekim döneminde kullandıkları bu Natrolis adını verdiğimiz özel bir gübreye dönüştürüyoruz. Chris de bahsetti, işte süreçteki karbon emisyonları azalıyor. Tabii ki toprağa daha az kimyasal veriyor oluyoruz. %40 daha az kimyasal veriyor oluyoruz. Dolayısıyla toprak üzerindeki negatif etkiyi en aza indiriyoruz. Gerçek anlamda topraktan gelen patates vesaire organik atıklarımızdan elde ettiğimiz bu gübreyi birlikte çalıştığımız çiftçilere, yani toprağa geri ulaştırarak tam anlamıyla bir döngüselliği sağlıyoruz. Şimdilik örnekler böyle verebilirim.
İfade ederken biyogazdan da bahsedeceğiz. Kendi enerjinizi üretme noktasındaki faaliyetlerinizden. Türkiye'de özellikle sanayi tesislerinde yenilenebilir enerji kullanımı ve enerji verimliliği yatırımlarını artırmayla ilgili bir gündemimiz de var. Bunu daha fazla artırabilmek için nerelerde müdahale olunabilir? Hangi teşvik unsurları gündeme getirilebilir? Bu konudaki önerileriniz ne olur acaba?
Tabii. Ben yine biraz ama anlatacağım biz neler yapıyoruz diye. Ondan
Tabii
sonra
ki.
tam sizin sorunuza cevap vermek istiyorum. Şimdi bizden bir başlarsam, ya enerji verimliliği arttırmak tabii ki onun ama yanı sıra pozitif dönüşümü hızlandırmak için yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarına yatırım çok kritik diye düşünüyoruz. 2021 yılı itibariyle de yine Türkiye'deki 6 fabrikamızda da %100 yenilenebilir elektrik kullanıyoruz. Ve yani yine gururlandıran bir şey, PepsiCo ekosistemi içinde tüm dünyada bu hedefe ulaşan ilk ülkelerden biriyiz. İşte biraz önce bahsettiğim o biyogaz, bu yenilenebilir elektrik ihtiyacımızın önemli bir kısmı oradan geliyor, biyogazdan. Bir kısmı güneş enerjisinden geliyor, fabrikalarımızdaki güneş panellerimizden. Geriye kalan ihtiyacımızı da sertifikalı yenilenebilir elektrik tedarikçilerinden temin ediyoruz. Yine hem soğutucularımızda hem araç filomuzda enerji sarfını en aza indirgeyecek ve yenilenebilir kaynaklardan enerji ihtiyacını karşılayacak seçenekleri önceliklendiriyoruz. Ama tabii yetmez. Yani bunlar bizim operasyonlarımızda, bizim etki alanımızdaki konular ama daha büyük etki yaratmak için tedarikçilerimizin de kendi operasyonlarında yenilenebilir enerji kaynaklarına yönelmesi gerekiyor. Belki biliyorsunuz yakın zamanda Uluslararası Enerji Ajansı bir rapor yayınladı. Gelecek 5 yılda dünya elektrik piyasalarında yeni kurulacak santrallerin %95'inin yenilenebilir enerji alanında olacağının altı çizildi. Tabii burada Çin, Hindistan, Amerika, Birleşik Devletleri, Avrupa ülkeleri bu önemli oyuncular olacak bu alanda. Ama Türkiye'nin de çok önemli bir potansiyeli olduğunun altı çizildi. Biz yeni destek mekanizmalarıyla yenilenebilir enerji yatırımlarına yönelik ilginin, isteğin arttırılması gerektiğini düşünüyoruz. Teşvik edilmesi gereken alanlardan biri bu alandır diyoruz. Yine bu konuda da işbirliklerine, fikir teatilerine her daim açığız.
Gerçekten sizin de söylediğiniz gibi dünyada ilk defa bu sene yenilenebilir enerjiyle ilgili yatırımlar genelde %50'yi geçtiler ve baskın üretim şekli oldular. Bu gerçekten ümit vaat eden bir gelişme ve önümüzdeki dönemde de daha da artarak devam edeceğini bekliyoruz. Ve özellikle ülkemiz için de bu konuda know-how'ımızın da çok ileri olduğu bir alan aslında. Yenilenebilir enerji noktasında gerçekten Türkiye başarılı uygulamalara imza atmış durumda ve sektörün bunları gerçekleştirme kapasitesi sadece Türkiye içi değil, Türkiye dışında da gerçekleştirme kapasitesi var. Daha iyi regülasyonla bunu da hayata geçeceğine bizim de inancımız tam. Bu gündeminde takipçisi olacağız. Siz önemli bir noktaya değindiniz konuşurken. Tedarik zincirindeki diğer firmaların da gelişimiyle ilgili bütün sürece de bütüncül bakacak olursak aslında üyemiz olan sizin gibi çok büyük şirketlerin yaptığı her şey tedarik zincirinin tamamına dokunuyor. Uçtan uca dönüşümü sağlıyor. KOBİ'lerin bu sürdürülebilirlik odağında faaliyetler gerçekleştirmesi için başka neler yapılabilir? Teknolojik dönüşüm, inovasyon, iyi uygulamaların yaygınlaştırılması bunu çok istiyoruz ama bir seviye etkisi yakalamakta durumundayız. Hani mevcut trendde bir gelişim olursa hedeflerin gerisinde kalma endişemiz var. O yüzden özellikle KOBİ'lere odaklı olarak bu dönüşümün hızlandırılması için neler yapılabileceğini düşünüyorsunuz? Yaptıklarınızdan da örnekleyerek tabii ki.
Serkan Bey, haklısınız. Ülkelerin ekonomisi için çok büyük öneme sahip olan KOBİ'ler sürdürülebilirlik ajandası için de çok önemli. Sürdürülebilir büyüme ve döngüsel ekonomiye geçiş sürecinde de çok önemliler. Ama maalesef Türkiye'de KOBİ'lerimizin çoğu günlük işleyişle çok meşgul oldukları için daha sürdürülebilirliği odağa alabilmiş değil. Ama almaları da gerekiyor. Çünkü evrilmemiz gereken yeni dünya düzeninde işlerini sürdürülebilirlik kriterleri çerçevesinde yürütmeyen kurumlar zorlanacak, varlıklarını uzun süre belki de devam ettiremeyecek. Ama tabii onlardan da yani orta küçük işletmelerden de birden iş yapış şekillerini değiştirmelerini beklemek doğru değil ya da onların bunu başarabilmesi çok kolay değil. Bilinçlenmek gerekiyor. Belli süreçlerden geçmeleri, işbirliklerine gitmeleri ve finansal destek görmeleri gerekiyor. Biz ne yapıyoruz? Biz global uyum süreçlerimiz kapsamında beraber çalıştığımız küçük ve orta ölçekli işletmelerin bu sürdürülebilir dönüşüme entegre olmalarının önünü açıyoruz. Onlara yönlendirmeler yapıyoruz. Bilgi, uygulama paylaşımları yapıyoruz. Ve şuna inanıyoruz, yani iklim krizi, çevre kirliliği, işte doğal kaynakların azalması gibi sorunlar tek başına biz küresel şirketlerin ya da sadece devletlerin çözebileceği sorunlar değil. Önce güçlü bir strateji ortaya konulmalı. Bu strateji tüm paydaşların beklentilerini, tüm oyuncuların beklentilerini dikkate alarak oluşturulmalı ve tabii ekonomik, çevresel ve sosyal etkilerin tümü bütüncül bir yaklaşımla değerlendirilmeli. Sonuçta da tüm ekosistem paydaşları bu bilinçle dönüşmeli ve tabii ki de bu alanda, bu dönüşümde yapılacak her bir iyileştirme adımı kaçınılmaz olarak finansal desteğe ihtiyaç doğuruyor. Chris de bahsetti. Önden yatırımlar yapılması gerekiyor. Ülke ekonomisi içindeki önemi her geçen gün artmakta olan KOBİ'lere yönelik politika destek programlarının dolayısıyla geliştirilmesi gerekiyor ve KOBİ'lerin bu yeşil dönüşüm finansmanına ulaşabilmeleri gerekiyor.
Ece Hanım, görüşleriniz için çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Biz ne söylesek sizi tekrar etmiş olacağız şimdi. Paylaştığınız kıymetli bilgiler için çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Önümüzdeki dönemde yürütmekte olduğunuz çalışmalarınızın da artarak devam edeceğini biliyoruz, temenni ediyoruz. Bu gündemimiz çerçevesinde sizlerle işbirliğimizi daha da geliştireceğiz. And with all that being said, everything boils down to basically two things, the aspiration to seek an ideal and the determination to make it happen. And in today's broadcast, we've seen that PepsiCo has both. I personally noted two phrases from Chris' presentation, like giving back as much as you take and setting science-based ambition targets. The science-based is very important on this one. This is what we are trying to introduce in the policy-making domain in Turkey while setting targets in the green transformation agenda of Turkey. And well, we thank everyone who is watching our broadcast, without whom no one of this would be possible. And Chris, I would like to hand the word over to you for the final remarks at the end of our short but insightful conversation. Thank you very much, both.
Great. Well, thank you, Serkan. And, congratulations to you guys for putting this on the agenda. I think it's fundamentally important. What I would say to everybody out there, this is an agenda for us all. We need to come together. We need to make this happen collectively together. The work that you guys are doing here, I think, is absolutely superb. Now let's turn that into real action and real change. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Stay healthy and stay safe. See you on our next program episode. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.